Kerryn Fields is a singer, songwriter, and multi-instrumentalist from Aotearoa, New Zealand, who now resides on our shores. She won the Music Victoria Award for Best Folk Work in 2022 for her second album, Water, which followed acclaim for her first album, Rascal. Her latest release is the EP, The Folk Singer, which is a magnificent piece of work, and we're going to talk about it. Hello, Kerryn.
Kia ora. So
Yeah.
good to see you.
Oh,
Wrap my arms around you. And a big
and a virtual hug to you as well. I'm going to hold up the new CD so that people can see it, because it's not on streaming. Actually, you can stream it on Bandcamp, but there is a CD to buy, and I also have a T-shirt. I don't normally do this, but it's such a lovely T-shirt, so I just want to show people that that's available. If people want to
like put it on.
as a slight detour here, I was on a plane on Saturday. We got into a downpour while standing on the tarmac waiting to get on. Long story short, there were men changing their shirts on the plane, just taking everything off for us all to see. Of course, the women do not have the same privilege. But speaking of planes, you have just returned from Folk Alliance in the USA, where you played several showcases. I was following it on social media. It looked like it was a great success. But how did it feel from your side?
It was like your first global open mic night. So
wow. Okay.
It's that feeling of going to an industry event where everybody's a superstar and your name's on the blackboard and you just hold your breath and grip onto your guitar and pray to God you remember everything you've ever done up until that day. It was so wonderful. It was wildly overwhelming, but completely fulfilling. So I'm really happy that I went.
Fantastic. Because there were quite a few shows and it looked like things were set up inside a hotel. So you were kind of playing in hotel rooms and the audience was moving from room to room.
Correct. So the whole hotel becomes a festival, and there are official showcases which happen on the stages, and they're all sound and tech and, you know, seated and all the rest. And then the whole rest of it is just hotel rooms. People push the beds to the side. They set up stages. Some people go all out and set up little bars and food. Obviously, we're looking for that at 2 o'clock in the morning. And everyone just plays for hours overnight. It'll blow your mind. It's so fun.
Does it take a little while to decompress after an experience like that? I know you had a plane ride back on which to do it, but I would imagine there's a bit of adrenaline and quite a lot of excitement that peaks at a certain point.
There is. I haven't really come back yet because it was a 44-hour return trip, and I flew straight into Perth to meet up with Matt Joe Gow, and we went immediately on to Nan Up Music Festival. So I'm just landing this week and all of my brain is just wide awake. So it's I think the best piece of advice was what I heard on the first day of Folk Alliance, which is when people ask you, how's Folk Alliance going? It'll be next year when you can answer the question.
Yeah, right. Okay. Well, that's an appropriate point to move on to talk about The Folk Singer, which is your new EP and was released around the same time as you went to Folk Alliance, and it was recorded as a live EP. When did the recording happen?
In late November, early December. It was really quick. Yeah, just popped into the Avery for a couple of hours, and yeah, I needed a home for these songs, and we found one, so out they came.
So it took a couple of hours. You say you just went boom, that's it.
Yeah. So it was really meant for that, budget wise as well. You know, we don't really have a lot of money to go flowing around and making records on the side. So it was like, I've got this much time and here are a couple of songs that are really suited to an acoustic setting. Let's just hit record. And I think the integrity of a live performance, especially vocally, is what I was trying to achieve, or at least just a translation of these songs as raw and as evocative as possible. So it's an acoustic EP that's not supposed to be too frilly. It's really just me and you hanging out.
Yeah. The songs do sound like they are of a piece, and you said that they were songs that needed a home. Did you always intend for them to be together?
No, I kind of felt a little nudged into it. I was actually thinking of how to raise funds to get to Folk Alliance, and I've never created a body of work and like for a project in that way. But my pal Kelly Bruhaha said, when I was racking my brain, she's like, why don't you just record a bunch of like live songs? And I thought, I've got a few in my backpack that I could spare. So I was looking at all these sort of unreleased songs and these sort of acoustic memos and stories and quirky things that might not sort of go on a big record or get overproduced or, you know, be fleshed out in that sort of studio way. And these songs just went, hey. And then when I listened to them back, I was like, oh, they make a wee family. So yeah, away I went.
So they said hey because they knew they belonged together, I think is
Yeah.
Now it is called an EP, but with the 2 bonus tracks, it makes 7 tracks, which is pretty much an album. I think even with the 5 tracks, it could be an album, you know.
Yeah, I think an EP is quite cute. You know, I haven't really officially released an EP. And for me, this is a record of in-betweeners. So I've had Water, and then I've got a record coming out with Matt Joe Gow, which is a gorgeous production. And I just wanted a little in-betweener. And so I didn't want to overcook it too much. I could have put 10 or 12 songs on it and still had plenty to spare, but it was about sort of making something really special and precious and going, there you go.
Yeah, and I agree. It is special and precious. And I think while all your songs are stories, they're also they're also drawn from your experiences, at least the ones on this EP are. And these songs sound very close to your experiences. And this mode of recording them really did suit the material. I felt like it's like we feel, because I'll use present tense because one can listen to it at any time. We feel close to you, as you said, we're just hanging out. And so I kept listening to it thinking, yeah, I can't imagine another way that these songs should have been done, if that makes sense.
That means a lot. It really does, because you always muse over how to capture a song, and then when it becomes sort of public and it's done, you're going to go, oh, I could have done something there, or I could have flourished that there. But I'm really glad to hear that it resonated in that way, because I agree. I do. Yeah, as scary as that was to go, yeah, there you go.
Yeah, I mean, it's also, having seen you play live, I know the power of you, just you and your guitar, right? And occasionally a harp. So I think that you always have the capability, obviously, to bring songs to life as acoustic, because you are also very road tested. And so whenever I see you play live or listen to your recordings, it's always an emotional experience. I think in the most fulsome way. And I don't mean like I'm so emotional. I mean like there's a gamut of human experience and emotions in there. And so in thinking about what to ask you regarding this EP, I was thinking, when did you realize that was your path as an artist, to write like this and to perform like this?
Oh, that's a really good question. To write from I guess like a personal narrative.
And also really, it's I think people need to listen to the songs to understand what it's like to listen to your music if they can't see you live as well, which is that it is a very, it's an open-hearted experience, but not in that, and as I said, this is a yogi, like not in the, oh, my heart's so open. It's actually like it's open, I'm here, I'm present, and the universe is in it.
Yeah,
that's too big a statement.
Oh, that's so good. I'm going to put that on my next t-shirt. That's brilliant. That's brilliant.
Well, yeah, it's a big commitment, I think, for you as an artist. I really do. Like I acknowledge every time I see you play live, every time I listen to your songs, I think she is here.
Oh, wow. That's great. I think that answers your earlier question. I think I always knew that I was here. And I never really shied away from telling the truth. I find that the more compelling and real my stories are, the more hilariously intertwined I am with other humans, no matter how random the story, how deep, dark, or wonderful, light and bright. There's always, you know, a community of legends that will go, that's my story. So that's what just encouraged me to keep going. And lucky for me, I'm living a very multi-dimensional, colorful life with lots of weird and wacky experiences. So I knew from a very young age that I was living a massive life. And it was really apparent that it wasn't normal to go through as much as that in a very short amount of time. And so I thought the only way to make peace with my own human existence is to alchemize that into magic.
Love it. And you've referred to, sorry, things that were happening in your young life, and I do think this is a reference to the song Canadian Folk Music as well that is on the EP. So if you're willing to talk about those experiences, which do involve surgeries in part, it'd be interesting to hear the backstory.
So Canadian folk music is about a beautiful man, and I introduce the story sometimes as saying who I went to bed with a number of times. It's a song about my surgeon, and he became an integral part of my life and even became like family to me, because as a child I underwent a number of surgeries on my bones and my body, and there really wasn't a lot of positive thinking around what kind of quality of life I might have, just regards with my own autonomy over my body and pain management for the rest of my life. So this particular surgeon really made a stand for me. We really got to know one another. And when it came down to making massive decisions about irreversible surgeries, we had to go into uncharted territories together and really trust one another. I had to really trust him with the knife, and he had to trust me with my life. And we actually I had to sign contracts as a teenager, really heavy stuff about saying, let's try this thing. It's the only hope I've got. So what have I got to lose? And it was sort of 4 or 5 years later, after this particular major surgery that I'm referring to, and a lot of rehab and a lot of recovery and healing, that I finally returned to him in my early 20s, almost fully formed, upright, walking for the first time. And I said, I'm going to go and be a folk singer. Thinking that would be hilarious, because after all of that hard work and all of that, the treacherous challenges, and I'm like, I'm just going to go and sing my feelings. And he turned around and said, isn't that funny? I listened to Canadian folk music during surgery. And his registrars and team were all cracking up laughing that this was going to be my chosen vocation, because they were kind of teasing him for some of his very obscure, unknown choices of music. And these surgeries go for hours at a time. So you can imagine the kind of playlists we're talking about here. But I didn't know that until the end of my journey with him, and shortly after he passed away. So it was a really heartbreaking but liberating time of my life. It was very unexpected when he passed away, and he left me with that gift of connection through music and medical marvel. So that's the story of Canadian folk music.
So that's an extraordinary relationship to have, even if he was subliminally programming you.
Yeah, it's really sweet. I was supposed to have, it's coming out in a couple of weeks. I've been a little busy with Folk Alliance, but I have a gorgeous video clip coming out for that song that celebrates my first tour in Canada in 2018. So it's this really lovely sort of love letter to him and his family, which sort of just a little nod to that wonderful man that took so many risks. And here I am still doing him proud, and myself.
Absolutely, because anyone who's seen you play knows you are upright and fully embodied. But I can only imagine what it was like for you to well, maybe you can tell us whether you felt at home in your own body when that was going on, or whether it was a sense of actually having to disconnect yourself from your body, and how that might have influenced you as an artist in terms of your understanding of how human life works, how the world works.
Wow. That is a great question. I genuinely felt like a soul, and that was all I felt connected to. You're very bang on with that observation, because my body didn't belong to me for the longest time. I couldn't shower or wash or clean or heal or do anything like that for a number of years. And so really, as a teenager as well, you just escape.
Yeah.
You leave. I lived in what I would refer to as daydream land. I daydreamed for what felt like years. And it really took the longest time for me to feel okay in my skin, for lots of other reasons that are really problematic inherited beliefs from society. So there's a whole other spectrum of, really, really uncomfortable society judgments that come with being a woman or a human or anyone with a body. So that compounded my disconnect of body and soul, and it really did take the longest time for me to slip back into my skin and feel like a human being. I quite liked feeling magical, though I'm not going to say that that was sad, but it's probably a good idea that I slipped back in.
Yes, because there is always the possibility one might move on to another dimension without realizing it. And I actually say this as someone, because I lived in Canada a few years ago, and I had a friend there who at a certain point in her teens realized that half the people she was seeing weren't alive anymore. So she was actually like, she then was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, but she realized that essentially she was living between dimensions of time. So she was seeing real people and she was seeing ghosts.
Oh,
And
I still see ghosts.
yeah.
Yeah, no, that's fine. They still hang around. Yeah.
So it's
That's my next record. I'm not even kidding. It's full of ghosts.
it's well, we could go off on a tangent here. I've had my own experiences with that actually post surgery. There you go.
Oh wow, maybe I'm not really seeing them.
No, I think they hitch a ride, depending on how sick you've been.
Yeah, no, that's totally true. And also, I was on pretty hard medication, opioids from a very young age. So I was like, Neil Young's got nothing on me. I was off on multiple dimensions, sometimes choosing to, and sometimes because of pain as well. Your pain actually forces you to disconnect from your body. Otherwise, your brain shuts down and your body will actually shut down on you because you can't be conscious while you're experiencing that level of pain. So my brain developed all these amazing tricks to actually leave its vessel. And that's part of the reason why I'm such a powerful candidate for observation in universities and places, because I have this remarkable body that really doesn't match what's on paper, but it's my ability to manifest other worlds in my mind and sort of go there when I can't manage what's actually physically happening. So it's a bit of a superpower.
That's absolutely a superpower, especially because I remember reading a while ago that children can't feel emotional pain, or something about what children will do in order to disconnect from pain. And obviously, since you were going through physical pain as well from a young age, you develop those mechanisms and were able to sustain them and then reintegrate. I think that's part of the wonder of you presenting as an artist and presenting the work you do, is that you reintegrated, as you said, you put yourself back in your body in a joyful way, because that's a big part of your work. Joy in being alive, joy in being in the world, and joy at the world, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. It does. And a lot of it stems from that, from that experience of having everything taken from you and being given that idea that you aren't going to have any kind of quality of life. And so, as I mentioned earlier, the daydreaming state, where you basically refuse that, you like just slide that back over the table, and allow everyone to kind of do their thing, and the surgeries and the nurses and that, and you go and live in this world and you basically start decorating it. It's like Minecraft, right? And then when you're released, it's that feeling of going like, and now I can go to this place that I know that exists because I've dreamed it up.
Yeah. So when you're writing a song, and particularly this song, Canadian folk music, where you're capturing a moment or moments in your life, I imagine you have several choices in terms of how you can do it. So given that you can construct a world separately to the actual experience, and you're wanting to document something that really happened, I'm wondering how you curate those experiences in order to write the song. Like, is there a starting point? Is it an emotion? Is it a memory that you just think, okay, I'm plucking that and starting there? Or do you just wait for it all to coalesce?
That's interesting. For this particular song, I was involved in a songwriting challenge, and that really helped me in my earlier, I guess, sort of after Rascal, my first record. It sort of helped me really churn through a lot of material. So Canadian folk music was part of that body of work in which I was writing and releasing a song every week. And I opened with that song exactly how it is. I strummed on the ukulele. It's not performed on the ukulele, but that was what it was written on. And I just burst out with, he liked to listen to Canadian folk music in surgery. And then I thought, something really beautiful must have been playing when he was operating on me. And then it was just like, and now I'll tell the story. I don't even have to make it up. Here it is.
Yeah. Not unrelated to that song is the song Forking the Road, because there are also references in that to surgeries. And I first heard this song live late last year, and you introduced it so the audience has the context. But the lyrics are clear. I think it's about you and motherhood and decisions that are made and decisions that are also out of your hands in relation to that path. Was it a difficult song to write?
Oh, that's a difficult song to sing, to write, to even know that it's out there, but it's an important one because it's actually just not my story. It's so many people's story in a really heartbreaking but also deeply connecting way. So yeah, the surgery reference from a personal perspective, yes, I knew at a very young age that many things would be inaccessible to me and many things would be very challenging, motherhood one of them. Nothing's impossible, but that's something that I have carried a long time. But the song really came to fruition when a stranger asked me at a party, you're going to have kids. And I'm just sort of like, sorry.
None of your business.
More wine. But at that time as well, there were a number of girlfriends, and still now, and boyfriends and they friends, the emperors and the empresses, all experiencing a journey to parenthood. And so collectively at that time, I felt this audience of these people experiencing this journey hold their breath with me. I was watching their journeys unfold on social media, or I know of them, or we're close enough. My siblings are all having children or not having children or on that journey. And so for me, it just felt like this question was so unanswerable that I had to answer it.
Right.
So I went home and, interestingly enough, found an actual fork in the river. And I plucked it out and thought, fork in the road. I'm just going to go and write that song now. Yeah, it's ready to come. Yeah.
And there is a river mentioned in it as well, because you talk about a dream you had of your mother skipping stones.
Yeah. Well, they are factual stories, but they're also symbolic of any person's journey and I guess, like the dreams and the wishes and the realities of the path to parenthood. I've spoken with friends who have been like so sure about certain things and their aspect of parenthood or their journey to parenthood, and then they haven't come to fruition, or they've had dreams, or they've gone to see a psychic, or insert whatever here, and really we're all left with that sort of question going, but what does it mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, does it mean, like, if I'm still here hanging on, then what did that all mean? Was it just a dream? Like, was it just me convincing myself? So I felt like that was embodying, again, every line in that song. There's about 5 or 6 different voices in my head of real experiences that I'm churning into that and sort of gently massaging into that story.
I remember when I saw you play it live and you were introducing it and telling us what it was about. And I thought, I don't know, there is another song actually that addresses this subject. Well, not that I've heard, and I've listened to a lot of songs. So yeah, and it's not even like, oh, it's a brave thing to do. I think it's just you documenting your experience. Well, not just you documenting your experience, but it must be interesting to be in the position of writing a song, recording and releasing a song that perhaps covers a subject that has not been covered in song.
Yeah, that's actually the sweet spot for a great storyteller, is trying to tell the story that hasn't been told yet. And I am grateful they've got a little bit of a knack for it, because I go to places that, perhaps aren't as censored
Right.
as other storytellers, but I still like to do it with sweetness and grace. I still like to do it in a place where those who might not feel a connection to the song or the lyrics can feel held by the melody or the way I deliver it. So I think in earlier years as a storyteller, I probably, or maybe would have delivered that song in some more of a forceful nature, or maybe even had my anger or grief woven into that in a way that's not really digestible by anyone. It's more cathartic. And I think as a songwriter, I learned how to hold really fragile things with a gentleness and a love and a consideration that allows it to be beautiful in its sadness.
Yeah. Sweetness is such a lovely term. You know, it's such a compliment to the audience to even consider it, I think, at that point. So was there a certain point in your life where you were decided to choose sweetness?
Oh God. Maybe after Water, like Water's like Water has like sweet moments. My record, Water, just for anyone, I'm just assuming everyone knows
I'd
about
say
it.
Until You is a very sweet moment on that album.
That is a sweet moment. Good choice. Yeah, I think that's something that that I'm going to speak to my pain in that regard, and that perhaps in earlier years it was very evident that I was someone living in extreme pain, and you could hear that in the tone of my voice. And even though I had this very interesting, powerful vessel and this powerful voice, I wasn't really quite sure how to hold my voice gently so it wasn't jarring or upsetting. And I don't know if that's the right way to explain it, but that's certainly how I felt when I heard myself sing. And I just thought, you can really hear that I'm struggling. And I just made that conscious decision to to sweeten how I sang in certain aspects of my show and what I do, because it actually helped me as well. It
Right.
actually helped calm my own nervous system. So those big raging songs have got their place, and I'm not going to stop writing them, but I didn't want to be an artist that just sort of pushed their pain or their narrative to the front. I thought, no, I'm going to have to learn how to be really amazing in all of these feelings, so other people who aren't as confident in their pain can feel welcome and feel sweetly held as well.
Are there any songs from the two albums that you've reinterpreted with sweetness now for a live performance?
Oh, that's a really clever question. I don't think so. Not for this particular, those two records, Water and The Folk Singer. I know I
I'm sorry,
certainly.
Rascal, I should say.
Oh,
Yeah.
Rascal.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Rascal's a bang. There's a lot of belters on there. That's me
Yeah.
like giving it to you. Yeah, I don't think so. I think I've stayed pretty true to how they were sort of captured at that time and written at that time. But I know that as I write new songs and as I create more work, that the sweetness comes into that, because reinterpreting is great, but I also don't want to disrespect the artist I was at that time, and
Yeah.
say, well, that's actually the emotion that I need to tap into when I go there. I can't imagine not singing Atlantis with the full force of my love. I have to sing it like I'm connected to source. So
Mhm.
yeah, it's about the future for me, and kind of picking points of sweetness and going, oh, I'm going to really treat myself with that one, and paint something lovely,
Yeah.
and then smash that one to pieces.
Now, since you mentioned Atlantis, I do have a question about Atlantis, because you have played a few festivals this year, and at one of them, you put something on social media mentioning that someone had said to you that they thought Atlantis was actually about a lettuce.
Yeah, because I sing about being in the kitchen with the nook of your back. If you want a lettuce, that's too good. You can't make that up. That's so great. I was like, I'm never going to be able to sing that song with a straight face. I mean,
Or you could write another song about fresh produce. I don't
have I got one? That's a good challenge. Yeah. No,
know.
yeah.
So,
Yeah. We do. I've got a song called Apple. It's coming out my next record. Oh.
you will be Kerryn Fresh Produce Fields. So apart from Fork in the Road, are there any other songs from the folk singer that are in your live set already, or which you are intending to introduce for a while?
Oh, I don't know. I like to have them in my back pocket. I think I like to play the song I Know Nothing when I'm having a cheeky moment. That song brings me great joy because it's so silly. So I like to have that one tucked in my pocket. But I think Fork in the Road is probably the one that I wanted to deliver live. And Canadian folk music is just the sweetest story. So those two there are probably songs that need a bit of air. And the rest of them are lovely additions, but I sort of just pop them in my pocket for special occasions, I think.
So I also imagine you won't have as many solo sets as you might otherwise, because you and Matt Joe Gow, as you mentioned, have been working on a project and you've been playing some festivals with him. And that is your next project, an album, some shows. So it's a pretty busy year ahead.
It's been wild. We've been on tour for a year, Matt and I.
And you've also been doing your own stuff.
Yeah, I'm releasing our respective records and writing. And yeah, I mean, we signed off on a great video today that we made from New Zealand. And it's an absolute blast. We put ourselves in a slingshot, really. And we're actually still doing the walking back bit. So so wait till we let go. Yeah, there's a lot happening. There's a lot of exciting creative stuff happening as well, which is cool. When I've finished this record with Matt, which is coming out in May, and we'll be touring it probably till the end of the year, but I think a little bit more sporadically after the big album tour, because I've got to go back in the studio. I've got my next full solo record ready to go, and that's got quite a number of songs on it. And that's another reason why the folk singer was a bit of a desperate, heartfelt thing I needed to do, because I was like, I can't put 20 songs on my next solo record, but all of these are like my children, and I just want to give them a little home. And so, yeah, it will be a busy year. Trying to fit all that in.
Does it feel a bit like there's a certain creative momentum, because you are in this flourishing patch, really? You know, you have all these things coming out. You have the EP. You've been working with Matt. You've got another solo album to come. Does it feel in your body, I guess, is the question I'm asking, since you are acutely aware of embodied experience? Does it feel in your body like it is this flourishing time?
Yeah, it is. It does feel like that too. I'm really grateful that I've worked the hardest on my personal health to be able to do the kinds of things that I'm doing right now. That by far has been my biggest challenge, and I'm not always on top of it. But it's every gratitude feeling for me. It's the start and the end of the day. It's every post. It's everything in me. Is like, it's always like, thank God I've got a body to do this. Like, and so while I've got it, let's go. And I adopted this really go hard mentality when I started walking again, and I had this body. And even at that point, they were like, oh, we've had a great outcome, but you're probably only going to be upright for 5 years. So when you're 16 years old and that's your best case scenario, I just went hardcore for that 5 years and achieved an enormous amount of things. And then my body kept going, and so did I. And I'm still rocking all these years later. So I just never really stopped that momentum of all of this could stop. All of this could be taken away. So I've been running at this pace for an extremely long time.
But also, what an extraordinary thing to live with, a prognosis like that, really. Like, oh, you got 5 years to enjoy being on your feet, and then that's it. I don't even know how you wrap your head around that as a young person, let alone, you know, as time went on.
Oh no, you don't. You have multiple mental breakdowns, and you yeah, and you write music and you fall apart, you know, and that's all okay. That's all just normal. I think it just takes a long time to make peace with the cards you're dealt, and I'm not ashamed of that at all. You know, it takes a lot of beautiful thoughts, a lot of hard work, a lot of discipline, and a lot of years of just practicing how to exist when you have a massive illness that threatens to take you out. So you just got to be real cool with that. And I say like really nice things to my body every day. It's a little bit kindergarten, but every time I walk up a mountain, I'm talking to my legs and I'm putting my hands on them and I'm cheering them on. And it all sounds a bit silly, but for me, it's really, really integral stuff. So I can really keep this momentum going, because otherwise I will be back in the daydream state, which is all of these ideas that I have, but I'd hate to not be able to actually do something with them. So
it's
yeah.
not at all kindergarten, I think, to talk to your body, because I was actually admonishing someone the other day for saying she had a bad back. I said, you know what, your back can hear you when you say that, because everyone who says I have tight hamstrings is like, I'm gonna stay tight for as long as you say that. The body mind, well, it's not even a connection, it's the same thing. But I've seen it so often in a yoga context, people talking about their body in a negative way, and the body absolutely living up to the expectations.
Absolutely. Yeah, I totally agree with that. And I'm really very gentle and careful with how I even communicate if I'm in pain or not, because it can actually just exacerbate it, which is one of those annoying things. You can sort of say, I'm in pain, and then immediately your body's like, yeah. And you're like,
Let's dial it up to 11.
yeah, that's it. Now that you've brought it to the forefront, it's like giving it the microphone at the table, and all your other emotions have to take a back seat when you give it too much attention. But it's a constant balance of going, sometimes pain does need you to really pay attention and give it some love, and other times it's just the problem child that you need to give it a lollipop. Yeah, so
I should also mention before I let you go, in addition to all this output, you are running a record label, Oily Rag Records, which I think you've been doing for a couple of years. If that's right.
I was a bit of a badass for a couple of years. I didn't really do much with it. I just kicked it off in the back of my Ford Falcon, and I was like, look, why not just start giving away information about how to be a rock star? Because it's way too hard to do it on your own. So yes, the record label has really taken off in the past few months. Well, actually, we released Your Heart of Gold, the Matt Joe Gow and Kerryn Fields debut single, and then we released Love You Like I Can on Oily Rag Records, but it was Matt's live record, the Woodshed Sessions. That was the first record out on Oily Rag. And then Brooke Taylor's will come out on the label in a few months, and so will ours. So it's shaping up to be a really exciting project, and we're really, really, really pumped.
So now we can add music mogul to your other jobs.
Yes. And also just like a messy rat bag. Look at all the merch. It's just terrible. I might be a mogul, but I probably need to I need to be a tidier mogul, I think.
It looks relatively tidy. Kerryn, I do think you're an extraordinary artist and an extraordinary human. And the great thing is that as the extraordinary human you are, you make extraordinary music. So we're all the beneficiaries for that. It's been wonderful to talk to you as ever, and I'm sure I'll talk to you again. I'll leave it here for now, reluctantly, but thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. What a pleasure, Treasure.